Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all could join me this morning. My name is Lael Reitler, for those that missed my part one. I am the ICHRA specialist here at Cornerstone. So we are going to go ahead and get started. I know we still have some people logging in, but it's 10 a.m., so it's time to go. All right, so here I am. There's my information. Feel free to always message me, call me with any questions, and then also I have a Calendly link that you can always set up if you're thinking it's going to be more than like a 10-minute conversation. Questions, please type them in the question box. We will get to them at the end of the webinar. We do kind of have a hard stop between 11:15 and 11:30. But I will go over as much as we can, and then any questions that you have that we don't get to, just email them to me or call me, and we'll answer them. I'll answer them. All right. So a quick recap of part one. In part one, we covered the why of ICHRA. So now we're going to move into the how. So also, everyone that was on the part one did get the recording, that registered for part one, got the recording of part one afterwards. If you did not get the recording, did not see the email go out with the recording link, you can also go to our Cornerstone YouTube channel, and that recording is available on there as well. So the key elements of an ICHRA plan design. We're going to need to define our employee classes, set reimbursement allowances, determine eligibility rules, and ensure ACA compliance. So designing your ICHRA starts with a few core building blocks that you see here. All right. So understanding employee classes. There are 11 different employee classes. One of the ICHRA's most powerful features is the class-based segmentation. So employee classes are what you would say the secret sauce to ICHRA's flexibility. So this lets you tailor benefits to different employee groups, but you must stay within the rules. Classes must be clearly defined. So the 11 classes, there's full-time employees, part-time employees, salaried employees, hourly employees, seasonal employees, temporary employees of a staffing firm, employees working in the same geographic location, employees in a waiting period, foreign employees who work abroad, employees covered by a union, and then any combination of two or more of the above classes. So within each class, you're going to be able to have different contribution amounts or only offer the ICHRA to a certain class. So that's one, again, a really great feature of the ICHRA. And also, I will say within a class, everyone has to be treated the same in that class. Okay, so another feature of ICHRA that not everyone is aware of is that you can continue to keep your group plan in one class and an ICHRA in another. But if you do, there are minimum size rules that apply, and that's to help prevent discrimination and cherry picking based on cost or health plans. So let me break it down. So if your company has fewer than 100 employees, you must have at least 10 people in the class offered the ICHRA. If you have between 100 and 200 employees, the rules change a little bit. The ICHRA offered class must make up at least 10% of your total workforce. So if you have 150 employees, you would need at least 15 in the ICHRA class. And then for employees with more than 200 employees, the minimum jumps to 20 employees in the ICHRA class. This requirement applies only when you are offering a traditional group plan to some classes and an ICHRA to others. So this helps prevent discrimination by ensuring you're not targeting a small, potentially high-risk group for reimbursement. Just make sure your class definition and head counts are consistent and clearly documented. The next thing that we're going to do once we've decided that what kind of classes we want for our employer group, we're going to set allowances. So you have flexibility when setting allowance amounts, but if you vary by age, you must stay within a 3-to-1 ratio, meaning the oldest eligible employee allowance cannot exceed 3 times the youngest eligible employees. So this mirrors how premiums are priced in the ACA individual market, and it keeps your ICHRA compliant. Many employers also choose to base their allowance amounts on the cost of a benchmark silver plan in that employee's rating area. The reason why is because it offers a practical, data-driven foundation for determining a meaningful allowance that aligns with the actual premium. So this method also helps ensure employees can find a plan that fits within their budget, especially for affordability compliance in applicable large employers. Silver plans are used by the ACA to determine premium tax credits, so they provide a reliable middle ground reference point for costs. So that's why we typically, when we're figuring out what contributions we want to give out to our employees, a lot of times we'll use that lowest cost silver plan as our base point. So again, you have flexibility when setting allowance amounts. So the main approaches are a flat amount. So everyone gets the same amount regardless of age, regardless of dependence. It's just simple, predictable budgeting. I'm not going to say it's what's best for the employees, but it is a very simple approach. The next way that you can set your allowance would be age banded. So we kind of went over that. So with age banding, because for those of you who don't know, on the individual market, the older you are, the more expensive the premiums are. So with age banding, it makes it a little more equitable for the employees. So the amount will increase based on your employee age, but you have to stay within that 3-to-1 ratio. So meaning your oldest employee cannot get more than 3 times of what your youngest employee is receiving. So the next possible tier would be the family tiered. So this is very common in a traditional group plan where you're going to give a different amount based on if it's an employee only enrolling, employee plus spouse, employee plus child, or family, employee plus family. And then you can also do a combination. So we could decide that we're going to do age-based tiering for our employees, but then we're going to do a flat amount for spouses and a flat amount for children. Or maybe we're going to give a higher amount to our employees, age-based. We're going to age-base the spouses too, because they will be age-based on the individual market, but maybe not as much to our spouses when we're age-basing it. And then our children, we're just going to give a flat amount. So that's a very common way to put the ICHRA in place contribution-wise for groups, and that's, again, because it does tend to be the most equitable for our employees. Now, the one thing I will say, because a lot of brokers who are used to having a traditional group plan, and the employers as well, they give percentages of premiums. That's not allowed with the ICHRA. So the ICHRA rules require fixed dollar allowances. So not percentages of the premiums. This is based on the IRS and DOL regulations, which state that ICHRA reimbursements must be expressed as a fixed dollar amount and not a percentage of premium costs. Allowing percentages could lead to inconsistent treatment across employees in the same class, and it violates the uniformity requirements. So if you're wanting to know reference, you can see the IRS final rule. This is it's detailed in that final rule. So you want to make sure that the approach that you choose is going to fit the team and the financial goals. And again, using age-based, we just want to make sure we're using that 3-to-1 ratio. So here are two examples. So on the left, you're going to see an age-based structure. Older employees are receiving higher allowances up to the 3 times maximum. So a very common way to kind of simplify doing the age-banded contributions is to do it like in 5-year groups or 10 years. I mean, this was big groups, but that's more just so I didn't take up a lot of space on the slide. So common is usually 5-year age banding. So it started out with 18 to 24, and then it's usually 25 to 30 or 25 to 29, and then 30 to 34 and 35 to 39. And if you are an individual broker, you know that within those 5-year periods, the premiums don't change too drastically. So if you are age banding, yes, in this instance, your 34-year-old your 26-year-old is going to be, 350 is going to mean a lot more to them than the 34-year-old, but it's still not hundreds of dollars of difference. So 5-year age banding, but I have had some employers do every year a different amount. So it just depends on what seems to be best for the employer and the employees. So the key to this is consistency and compliance with non-discrimination rules. So eligible expenses under the ICHRA. The ICHRAs can, at a minimum, the ICHRA is going to reimburse for individual health insurance premiums, but you can also choose to reimburse for other 213D medical expenses, but that requires more tracking and substantiation. So if you do decide to implement an ICHRA that is going to cover medical expenses, it is highly recommended that you're going to use a platform. But the other really great thing about an ICHRA is that the ICHRA dollars can also reimburse for Medicare premiums. So Medicare Part A, if applicable, because we do know a lot of people don't pay for Part A, but there are some. Part B, Part C, which would be your Medicare Advantage plans, or a Medicare supplement premium, and D premiums. So ICHRA can cover a lot of different items, which is really cool. So if you are going to have the ICHRA cover the 213D medical expenses, the substantiation methods must include basically where you're getting an invoice, date of service, type of coverage, proof of payment, and then also invoice of the health insurance premiums as well. So we want to make sure that that's in place. So again, we would want to use a provider for that to make sure that we're staying compliant. So premium only ICHRAs is, a lot of employers opt for a premium only ICHRA structure because these plans only reimburse the individual health insurance premiums. They're not going to cover your out-of-pocket medical expenses, which means that they're going to be much more simple to administer and easier to substantiate. So more importantly, if employees are choosing a high deductible health plan, they can still contribute to HSAs if you have a premium only ICHRA in place. So as long as the ICHRA is not going to cover other medical expenses, then this will allow employees to take advantage of enrolling in a high deductible HSA eligible plan and being able to contribute dollars into that HSA. So this preserves a major tax advantage for employees. So if the employers are wanting to keep things lean, compliant, and HSA friendly, this means that we're definitely going to want to make sure that we're implementing a premium only model. So employee affordability and premium tax credits. So ICHRA, let me go ahead and just put everything up on the slide. So ICHRA interacts with the ACA marketplace. So if your ICHRA is deemed affordable, employees are ineligible for premium subsidies. So this makes affordability calculations important, especially for the applicable large employers, which would be 50 or more full-time equivalent employees. Affordability, it's a critical concept in ICHRA, in any ICHRA design for any applicable large employer. So if the plan is deemed unaffordable under IRS standards, employees can waive the ICHRA and receive premium tax credits on the exchange. And this could trigger an ACA penalty for the employer if they are an ALE. So we need to use the affordability formula when we're working with employers to help make sure that the contribution amounts that they are determining to provide to their employees will be considered affordable. And so the affordability formula is if you take the lowest cost silver plan where that employee resides, subtract that ICHRA contribution, and if the amount left over that the employee is going to have to pay out of their pocket, if that is more than 9.02% of their household income, then that's going to be considered unaffordable, and at that point they can waive the ICHRA and get the premium tax credit instead. So if it's a small employer, this doesn't hurt the employer, and it's fine. It's not going to hurt anything. And an employee might be able to get more from the premium tax credit versus the ICHRA dollars that their employer is reimbursing them for. So, however, if it's a large employer, an ALE, then this could mean penalties for that employer. So we want to make sure we're working with the employer structuring the contributions so that they are affordable. If affordability is misunderstood or poorly communicated, employees may accept the ICHRA thinking that because their employer is offering the ICHRA, it completely disqualifies them from a premium tax credit, when in fact, like I said prior, it only disqualifies them from the premium tax credit if the ICHRA is considered unaffordable. Or disqualified if the ICHRA is considered affordable. So, all right. So, and if that were to happen, you know, the employer could be missing out on more money from the government. So we just want to make sure that we're talking to the employees, talking to the employers, and making sure that we understand that affordability factor when it comes to contributions. So this slide addresses how to bridge your ICHRA strategy with the individual insurance market. So one of the biggest concerns employers have is, how will my employees actually shop for coverage? The good news is this process can be guided. So you can work with brokers, platforms, navigation tools to help employees compare ACA plans on the private market options. So for off-exchange plans, employees may be able to use their pre-tax payroll deductions if you set up a Section 125 cafeteria plan. So that means the premiums, once you've subtracted what those ICHRA contributions are going to be, the portion that belongs to the employee to pay out of their pocket can be taken out of their paychecks, pre-tax, again, as long as the enrollment was done off exchange. So that's going to be direct through the carriers. Health Sherpa has a couple different off-exchange carriers on their platform, but they don't have them all. So you're going to want to go direct to your broker portal with each of the carriers to do those off-exchange enrollments. However, if an employee enrolls in a marketplace plan, IRS rules require that their share be paid post-tax. So helping employees understand these options, it increases their satisfaction, and it boosts the ICHRA participation. So if you're enrolling directly through healthcare.gov or Health Sherpa on their on-exchange platform, which is where most of you are familiar with, that is considered on exchange. And then at that point, those employees' premiums can still come out of the paycheck, but it will be on a post-tax basis. So that's not going to be the best use of their money by doing that, because again, we want to try to make this as tax-free as possible. In Ohio, there are a couple carriers currently this year that do not have off-exchange plans available, but they have pretty good networks that maybe are the employees that we're working with will want to go with those networks, and that's fine. You still want to present those on-exchange carriers to the employees, because we don't want to tell them well, sorry, there's no carrier that has your employees in network, when there is in fact one, but it just happens to be an on-exchange carrier. So we still want to present that to the employee. We just want to make sure that they are aware that their portion of the premium will come out of their paycheck post-tax versus the ability of pre-tax if we were to find a carrier that has that off-exchange enrollment available. So just an important thing that we're talking with our employers and our employees, because at the end of the day, once you do have all of your employees enrolled, you're going to want to provide a list to your employer of all the different employees and which ones should be pre-tax and which ones should be post-tax. And again, we're only talking about the portion that belongs to the employee. So the ICHRA dollars themselves will always be pre-tax, regardless of whether you do on or off exchange. So eligible individual plans under an ICHRA. So this one is also a very common asked questions, what type of coverage are actually eligible for the reimbursement under ICHRA. So the key rule is that the plan must provide minimum essential coverage, MEC. So that includes ACA compliant individual health plans, whether on or off, Medicare premiums, and then some student plans. And if a veteran is enrolled in VA benefits that meet MEC, those can also qualify. What does not qualify is short-term medical plans, healthcare sharing ministries, being on a spouse's plan through their employer. So those would not comply. It has to be ACA compliant individual plan, and again, that's covering that MEC. So ICHRA implementation. We want to, when we're getting ready to implement this with an employer, these are basically the key things that we need to do. We need to determine the budget. So what does that employer want to contribute to their employees? And do they want to have different classes? Do they maybe want to offer more to full-time employees, but also offer coverage to part-time employees, which you can do with an ICHRA, but maybe they don't want to give as much to their part-time employees? Or maybe they want to keep their full-time, their traditional group health plan in place for their full-time employees, but offer an ICHRA and make that available to their part-time employees. So again, refer back to that slide with the 11 classes, and we can do those sorts of things, which is what makes ICHRA, one of the things that makes ICHRA such a great thing to implement into an employer group. So you're going to want to select a TPA or a payment vendor to help simplify the process of implementing the ICHRA. They're going to have that payment platform where your employees will not have to upfront any premiums if you have a payment platform in place. So the payment platform is going to make the payments to all of the individual carriers that all of the employees have chosen, and then they are going to send one invoice to the employer to pay. So financially, it's going to feel very much like a traditional group plan. That employer is going to pay that one invoice, and then any portion over the amount of the ICHRA contributions that the employees will have to pay out of pocket, they will take that out of their paychecks on a pre or post-tax basis based on how the enrollment was done and whether they have a Section 125 in place. And then communicate with employees about their options. That's going to be a key necessity, especially in states that do not have PPO or POS plans available, Ohio being one of those states where there's only HMO plans. One of the key things that we need to be talking to these employees about is network, because if they have been on a traditional group plan, typically those are PPO plans, and they're not used to have to make sure that their doctors or facilities are in network before they go. So that is a huge piece of communication when you're talking to the employees, is making them aware, one, before you enroll them in a plan with a carrier, you're making sure that those doctors that they care about they'll be able to continue to still use as in network by choosing a carrier that has those doctors in network, and then also letting them know going forward if they need any new doctors or they need to go to a new facility, they need to double check and make sure that it's in their network. They cannot just go and it's going to be covered one way or the other. That's not the case on individual plans. And when they had their traditional group plan, typically that was the case. They didn't have as narrow of a network as most individual plans do. So very, very key education component to installing an ICHRA with an employer. And then you're going to assist the employees in enrolling in individual plans. So you're not going to just tell the employer, we're going to implement this ICHRA and the employees can go to healthcare.gov. We don't want to do that. That's not going to make anyone happy. One, most employees are not used to having such a vast array of plans to choose from, so that's going to be very confusing to them in and of itself. And then also, like we said, the education piece to it. When we're working with employers, employees are used to having their hands held. They're used to only having one or two plans to choose from. So we want to give them great service, and part of the great service is working with each employee individually and helping them determine what plan is going to be best up for them based on their needs and their family needs and also their budget, because that contribution piece is going to be set before you start working with the employees and getting them enrolled. So they're going to know how much money they have to work with. They're going to know, hey, my employer is giving me $300 a month. So now they can determine how much more they want to pay out of their own pockets to get a plan, and that's something that you're going to be working with the employees with. And then also compliance. You're going to monitor compliance and you're going to adjust as necessary. That is something that's ongoing throughout the year, and there are key dates, and we're going to go through all of that in Part 3, so make sure that you definitely register for Part 3 because compliance is a huge piece to this. All right. So common mistakes to avoid. This slide is your caution flag. So here are the most common traps we see. First, not documenting your employee classes or affordability assumptions. This can cause legal issues. Second, setting reimbursement rates too low for your employees to buy meaningful coverage. Yes, if you're a small employer, so under 50 employees, if you do set it too low, then most likely those ICHRA dollars will be deemed unaffordable, and then the employee can waive the ICHRA and get premium tax credit instead. So that's not as, it just depends on what the employer is trying to do, but you need to make sure that they know what these rates are on the individual market. So if they are trying to offer a meaningful benefit, then we don't want them setting those too low. And then with large employers, it's extremely important because if they do set it too low, then they are going to be open to those penalties. And then third, if you don't clearly explain how ICHRA works, the employees are going to most likely feel abandoned. And then finally, don't forget, ICHRA is a group health plan under ERISA. If you're offering it, you have responsibilities just like you would with a traditional plan. So avoiding these pitfalls will make your ICHRA roll out smoother. And then in most issues, they stem from unclear design or poor communication, both of which are easily preventable with the right guidance. All right, so to wrap up our conversations, I'm just going to put these all on the screen because, all right, so key takeaways. Remember, ICHRA is not a plug-and-play solution. It's flexible, but you need to design it intentionally. Start by clearly defining your employee classes, build a reimbursement strategy that aligns with local insurance market and company's budget. Premium-only ICHRAs are a great option for employers who want simplicity and want to preserve employees' HSA eligibility. And finally, don't do it alone. Lean on the platforms, partners, brokers to support you. Lean on me, Cornerstone, and focus on educating your employees. And that's the key to a successful ICHRA strategy. So The next thing I want to talk about is a case study. So I had a individual broker come to me for assistance with a group that she had that could potentially benefit from having an ICHRA. They had a, let's see what's on here. So they had a self-funded group plan. It was about 300 employees. They had a participation rate of I think they had 119 on that self-only plan. The premiums were outrageous, just completely outrageous. This individual broker was a fairly new broker to the industry, new to the health insurance industry. She did not have group experience, but she knew that I did, and she felt confident in going to this group along with me to help her with any questions that might arise to see if maybe this would be a good fit for the group. So we ran a proposal for them. There was going to be a $2 million savings annually by this group moving to an ICHRA. So, and that's only with 119 employees enrolled, so significant. She went to the group, so we met multiple times, pretty large employer, and this is obviously a huge change, but they decided to go forward, obviously, with a $2 million savings. It's pretty hard to say no. So she went ahead and went forward, and we got them enrolled in the plan, and it's been a really great experience for them. And this was, I think they've been into it 2 months now. But that first month, she sent me an email, and I wanted to share it with you. When I read it, it literally brought tears to my eyes because, yes, we're salespeople, but when we're able to help, it makes us feel so much more than that, because we're not just selling a product, we're selling something that people need, and when we're able to we see a lot of negatives, so it's really, really great and special when we see the positive. And with ICHRA and all the groups that I've installed ICHRA in, it's always it's great news. Oh, we're going to save you money. We're going to offer you flexibility. For the employers and the employees, this isn't just a great benefit for employers. It's a great benefit for employees because they have the option of choice now. They can pick a plan that fits what they want, what they're looking for, can fit their budget. So it's great all around. So I'm going to read the email just because it was so special to me, and I think it's a really important and good reference for all of you. So whether you're new to the industry or been in existence, this is a really great testimony. So this is right before she finished doing all of the enrollments. And she said, as the enrollment process begins, I just wanted to share a quick update from all of my meetings. I was able to sit down with almost all of the employees regarding the new healthcare options. What's been truly impactful is that nearly 20 of the employees I spoke with shared that this is the first time they've ever been able to afford healthcare coverage, a real game changer for them and their families. It's clear that new plans are making a significant difference. From what I've seen, upwards of 4 out of 5 employees are looking at premium savings in the range of 80 to 90%. Honestly, it was quite moving to witness the impact of these life-changing dollars firsthand. Many employees left the session feeling overwhelmed, even expressing it felt like an $8,000 or $9,000 or $10,000 raise. To highlight the magnitude of the savings for some, one employee shared that their annual family premium was $17,765 and will now be $5,130. That's a substantial difference. So huge. Employees that were never able to afford coverage were finally able to get coverage for themselves and their families. And they all came out with multi-thousand raises, essentially, because now they're the ones that were on coverage were now able to pick a plan that was substantially less. Once she got everyone completed, she ended up enrolling 128 employees with a total of 280 belly buttons when you include the spouses and children. So collectively, the employees, the 128 employees collectively, was a $700,000 savings. So this one implementation of an ICHRA total, with you count the employer plus the employee, $2.7 million in savings. Huge, dramatic, huge impact to the lives of these employees. And the employer, now the employer is going to be able to maybe offer more benefits, maybe give raises, like real raises, not just the lower premiums of their health care for their employees, but raises to the employees. Huge impact. Now, I know that this is a dramatic savings of an ICHRA, but it happened, and we get them throughout all. I get savings of 20,000, 400,000, 700,000. I'm seeing them all, but I've also have seen where it's not going to be a savings, and that's okay. We'll run the proposal and we'll see what's going to happen. And again, just the savings and premiums is not the only reason to implement an ICHRA. Maybe it's because they are wanting to have different classes and contribution amounts based on classes, or they're wanting to offer it to part-time employees. So there's multiple reasons besides just a premium savings. The other thing I have gotten from some brokers were, yeah, but the individual plans aren't as good as group plans. There is some validity to that. However, only in some cases, because I've seen some really bad group plans, traditional group plans out there. There are some really great ones, some grandmothered, grandfathered plans, but I will not say that, head over heels that there are traditional group plans are always going to be better than an individual plan, because that is not the case. That's not true. So if you are a group broker and you haven't delved into the individual plan, so you're not really aware and you're just thinking of what other people have told you, that is not always the case. It really is going to be a case-by-case scenario as to what is installed with that employer currently with the traditional plan versus what's available in the individual market. It is not always a better plan traditionally. It just depends on what they're on. Okay. So what can we do to help you, Cornerstone? So we partner with several different payment platforms. And again, what those payment platforms do is they consolidate the premium billing and the payment. So financially, it's going to feel the same as a traditional group plan for your employer and your employees. So the employees are not going to have to upfront any premiums. It's all going to be paid in advance from that payment platform. And then again, the payment platform is going to give one invoice to the employer to pay, and then the employer is going to take out the employee's portions out of their paychecks, hopefully pre-tax, as long as we've done the enrollment off exchange and we have that Section 125 in place. But then again, sometimes on exchange is going to be the better fit for the employee. And they're also going to provide reporting for the different compliance that's going to happen throughout the year. And also we have some legal paperwork that they generate as well that we're able to pull from. What vendor we're going to use for your group is going to be based on the group side. We have a payment vendor that really is great for your smaller employers, and then one that's great for your larger. So the administration fee will depend on the size of the group, and that's just because the larger you are, there's going to be more work involved. The payment vendor that we partner with for the larger employers does have an annual fee involved to it, as well as a minimum, where the payment platform that we use for our smaller employers does not. So for a smaller employer, we like to use that one because the annual fee and minimums aren't so great for small employers. All right, and then essentially the other thing that I do, other than bring on that payment platform, is I'm here for you, my team's here for you. We don't want you to ever turn away a client because you're maybe not so confident in installing an ICHRA, or maybe you run across a group that has employees in multiple states and maybe you're not licensed in multiple states. Well, we can come in and rate those employees that are in the states that you're not licensed in, and then we would give you a referral fee for those employees. So, or maybe you're a group broker who doesn't write individual. Well, we can still get this implemented for you. We can write the individual piece. Again, we'll work out the commissions, but there are referral fees that you get for the individual policies that are written, and they are per belly button and for life. So we are going to basically fit your gaps. Whatever that you don't feel confident in, we're going to come in and make it a confident enrollment for that group. Okay, so part 3, again, we're going to really dive into the compliance piece of it. It's very important. These are traditional group products. All of the compliance that's involved in having a traditional group plan, you're going to have them for ICHRAs as well, because remember, ICHRA is a group health insurance product. So we're going to talk about the full ERISA picture, plan documents, notices, HIPAA, COBRA, Form 5500, and ACA reporting. So if you're offering or planning to offer the ICHRA, the next session is going to be essential to keeping your program compliant and audit ready. So make sure that you register, and then here's the QR code that you're going to be able to register with. We also will be sending out an email where you can register as well. And then if you have any questions from today, write them in the box. I wanted to make sure I had enough time because I figured this session would have more questions than normal. Not sure if it does yet, but if you're not able to write it, call me, email me. We'll set up a calendar invite, and I think here's my QR code if you want to set up a calendar invite, and we can set up a session if you want me to talk with an employer group with you. More than happy to do that. We can either do it on like a Zoom, or I can even go out in person, a phone call, whatever works best for that prospect for you. Okay, so now we're going to open up the floor to questions, and let me get to that box. And okay, how do you develop a strategy for a company that pays 100% of the premium? So the way that would work is that we would typically, if they had a traditional plan in place, we would want to see if they had like a benefit-rich plan, and if so, we would base premiums on the gold plan maybe instead of a silver. But if they had a less rich benefit plan, we're going to basically take the lowest cost silver plans where that employer is located and base the contribution amounts based on that 100%. So maybe if you're looking at, a 25-year-old and the lowest cost silver plan for a 25-year-old is $200, then that means that $200 is what the employer is going to contribute. So if the employee wants to get a more rich benefit plan than a silver plan, then they'll have to pay the extras. So the employer can still pay 100% set on a specific plan, but the employee is still going to be able to choose whatever plan they'd like. If the employer is like, I want to pay 100% of the richest plan available, then we'll pull up those premiums for the richest plan available. Again, there might be a little bit that the employee would have to pay if they were to choose that richest plan, or there could be some, I'm sorry, Jess, someone raised their hand. I don't know is there a way to let people talk? I think she might have a question, or just have them write in the question box.
Yeah, if you have a question, just write it in the box. If we unmute everybody, the sound gets wonky.
Okay. All right, sounds good. So I think it was Bernadette that was raising her hand. So just write it in the box, or if you're wanting to talk, feel like it's an easier conversation, then just call me. I won't be available today, but just call me, and then I'll give you a call back when I am available. All right. So Tim, yeah, that's essentially what we can do. So it's not going to always be exactly 100% if they pick a plan that's going to be richer than what that premium amount is, but the employers can set a pretty rich premium, and then at that point it'll be 100%. So it's a little different than working with traditional. All right, so then is there a link that can be used for ICHRA enrollment for groups that have an enrollment platform? Currently, yeah, I know what you're asking. So there are none of the vendors we work with currently have that ability. I know that they are working towards having that technology feature. I don't even think I know of any ICHRA vendors that do have that as an option currently. Yeah, I don't think there's any right now, but that is something that I do have on. Let's talk offline, Jennifer, about that vendor that you mentioned in here. Let's talk offline about that. I don't want to bring that up on here. So, all right. And then next question, are all off-exchange plans on the platform? If they are not, can the EE pick a plan off of the platform? So I don't know what exactly you mean by the platform, but if you're talking about Health Sherpa, no. Health Sherpa just has on-exchange plans, unless there's a little toggle on the right-hand side, upper right, where you can go to off-exchange, but there's only a few carriers that are on that off-exchange platform. So you would have to do enrollments directly through the insurance carriers. So you log into your broker portal, and there is a link for you to enroll off-exchange for employees. If you have any problems with that, you can reach out to me, you can reach out to Jeff or Brad. They're all familiar, as well as how you can do enrollments directly through the different platforms. But as of right now, there's no platform that gives you the ability to do direct enrollments off exchange. Even with like our vendor platform for our larger groups, they do have a platform where employees are going to go in and select plans, but it doesn't completely enroll them for some of the carriers, because not all of the carriers have that feed that they're making available to the different vendors. So there might be some that will go all the way through and actually feed over to the carrier and they're enrolled. But most of those vendor platforms, those payment platforms for ICHRA, what they're doing is the employees are doing the enrollments on the platform up to a certain point, and basically you're then at that point, once they've done the enrollment, then on the back end you're having to print off applications and then take those applications and do the enrollments through the carriers. So not every carrier has that feed available. And can they add employees anytime? So installing an ICHRA is a qualifying event. So let's say you decided to install an ICHRA, it's for August 1. Anyone that, whether they were already on coverage through a traditional plan or they're canceling a plan, obviously that's a qualifying event. But let's say it's a virgin group and their employees didn't have any coverage. That is going to open up a qualifying event for them to go ahead and get enrolled into those individual plans. New hires, so each of the employers are going to have a new hire waiting period, just like they do with a traditional group plan. And that's going to give them an open enrollment or a qualifying event to get enrolled into an individual plan once they've passed whatever that new hire waiting period is. So I think I went over the new hire waiting period on part 1, but essentially an employer can choose to allow a new employee to get enrolled first of the month after date of hire, first of the month after 30 days, or first of the month after 60 days. It has to be one of those three, because per the government guidelines, a new employee cannot wait longer than 90 days to get enrolled. So the first, and then on the individual market, all plans start on the first. So the latest open enrollment period we really could have to make sure that we're staying within that 90 days would be first of the month after 60 days. But yes, they do have a qualifying event at that point. They're going to have that ICHRA notice, and that's going to be their SEP documentation. We need the income for the employees, and can we do on and off exchange plans for the employees, or keep the on exchange plans separate? So when you're working with the employees, yes, you're going to want to get their income. When I'm doing a proposal, on the census template that I can send out to you, one of the columns is salary, because I can determine the affordability in advance for you and for the employer you're working with, so they kind of know the guidelines they want to stay in if they're trying to keep those contributions affordable. So that is a great piece to have prior to working with employees at the very beginning when I'm running the proposal. But if we don't have them, I can still do the proposal without, and then when you're working with each of the employees, you can talk to them about their income just to verify that the ICHRA dollars are affordable, and if they are, then they are, and if they're not, then at that point you can see if a premium tax credit would be best for them. If they're getting a premium tax credit, then those plans would have to be enrolled on exchange plans. Premium tax credits are not available for off-exchange plans. Again, one of the things, and we're going to talk about it a lot in part 3, you as the broker have to make all carriers and plans available to the employees. You cannot say, well, I only write with Anthem and Medical Mutual. I'm not going to offer Ambetter or CareSource or Aetna, whatever it may be. Aetna's only available for a few more months, but you cannot only drive them to 1 or 2 carriers. You cannot say, well, off exchange is what's going to give you the ability to have your portion pre-tax, so I'm not going to offer on exchange. You have to let them know what's available on exchange, and what that would mean to them pre or post-tax, because you don't want to cut out the CareSource and the Molina, because CareSource has some of the children's hospitals that the other carriers do not. So then at that point, if it's a family and they have children and they want to make sure that they can go to that children's hospital, you don't want to be telling them, well, there's no carrier that has them, when that's not true. There is a carrier. So we want to make everything available to them, but we want to make sure they understand what that means for them if they were to enroll in CareSource versus, a Medical Mutual or an Anthem that has off-exchange plans available. What I have heard is that CareSource is going to have off-exchange plans available next year. We'll see if that happens, but that's what I'm hearing. So, does it seem that if the income is higher, does ICHRA work better? No, I wouldn't say income has anything to do with ICHRA as far as if it seems like it's a better fit or not. It's just going to be really dependent on what the contribution amounts that the employer has decided for those employees. Yeah, and we never know, beforehand, we're only working off of what the employer is giving them salary-wise, because we don't know what their spouses are making. And again, affordability is based on household income. So no, I don't think ICHRA works better or not based on an employee's income. All right, let me make sure I got all the questions. Okay, so I'm going to get going. Like I said, register for part 3. We'll talk about all of the compliance. Let me go back to that slide in case you didn't have a chance to use the QR code. But it is going to be so not next Thursday, but Thursday after at 10 a.m. And then again, we're going to dive into all the compliance. If you have any questions, in the meantime, call me, email me, set up time on my calendar, and hopefully, we can start working together and get some groups in place. So thanks everyone for your time, and have a great rest of your day.